So, freelance versus full-time video editing, which is better? We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of each, hopefully come to a conclusion about which is better. And we're going to try a few new things. I've got a really interesting, incredible announcement. And today we're trying something new because this is completely live. This podcast has no editing. It's being broadcast live on YouTube. So if you're watching this on video, hello. And I'm going to just riff, and hopefully I don't go too off tangent because we've got some incredible things to talk about today. Firstly, big announcement. Unsplice Pro has been simmering in the background for long enough now. Those of you on the email list will have heard me talking about it. It's an incredible concept. It's a membership where you will receive weekly career coaching and career guidance and monthly creative training, all squeezed into 2 hours. So it essentially helps you through each stage of your career by delivering exactly what you need at the point that you are in your career. And that's being launched on August the 1st. So from this date of this live, we are live now on the 19th of July. And that is going live in 2 weeks. So if you are interested in learning more about that membership, go to unsplice.com/pro and you'll find all the information you need. We currently have 2 tiers of membership, currently in beta mode. So the first tier, it just gives you access to the career guidance. That is £25 a month, which is incredibly affordable. And that will give you some amazing insights into things like how to move from assistant editor to editor, how to find work, which is something that I know that a lot of freelance video editors are looking for help with. So how to find work as a freelancer, as well as how to show off your work and prices and rates. And also we have creative training coming up. Every month you'll have specific training compressed down into 2 hours. So you can do it in one day on the weekend, and it's all live with me. So you'll be able to ask questions and get answers straight away. So that's the first announcement. So the first tier, lower tier of that is £25, and the upper tier, which includes the creative training, is £50, which is incredible value for what you get, because most courses out there are like £300 at least. And this is so much cheaper and so much more affordable, and it's compacted. So all the information that you need is done within 2 hours. So head to unsplice.com/pro if you are interested in that. Those who are the founding members, the first to come join the community, will get a preferential rate, so that you'll be able to keep that low rate as the rates, the cost of the membership goes up. And it will, because the value is just incredible. So you're looking at the price is going to double very soon. So, second big announcement is the fact that we have the very first Unsplice editing challenge coming up next week, which is going to lead us into the launch of Unsplice Pro. So we have a 5-day commercial video editing challenge. On the 27th of July, which is exactly 1 week from now, you will have 5 days to create a commercial. We'll give you the footage, and we're going to give you 5 days of live training. So every day we're going to guide you through step by step how to edit a commercial, and you'll have a live Q&A at the end of that session, so you can ask me any creative questions you like. about how to cut a commercial. You'll get access to the footage, the raw footage to keep. You'll also get prizes for the best edits. So beginner, intermediate, and advanced categories. There will be a best edit winner in each of those, and that winner will win over £300 worth of prizes. This is £300 worth of training to help you get to the next stage of your career. Best of all, entrance to the challenge is only £10. Yes, £10 is it. That's all you're going to pay, and you'll get access to footage, the step-by-step guidance of how to create a commercial, and prizes as well. So if you are looking to join, check out unsplice.com/challenge. That's unsplice.com/challenge. And that should get you all the information you need. So without further ado, let's talk about freelance versus full-time video editing. Which is better? So I'd like to tell a story about my journey as a freelance editor, what happened at each point, and how I came to the decision that I wanted to become freelance. And it starts in 2006. Back in the day, 2006, I was working at the moving picture company, MPC. I started as a runner, and they are one of the biggest post-production houses in Europe, to be honest. And I was running on shows like Harry Potter. And I learnt very quickly that the VFX industry was not for me. Some of you already know this story, so I'm going to cut it brief. And when I was working as a motion graphics artist, I was taught on the job. My salary at that point was £17,000. And that is, of course, you know, we're going to hit a bump in the live. Forgive me, while I riff off my notes. £17,000 of my salary, and at the time it was barely enough to live on. I had to sign up for government benefits, which made me kind of think, after 3.5 years of studying, well, why? It felt a bit pointless. So I just accepted that as fact, really. And most people, they just said, this is the salary. I was like, okay, it was my first job in the industry. That sounds about right. And I didn't really understand my value, how much I was worth at that point. So yeah, £17,000 was like, okay, fine. Even though I was earning the same amount part-time, it felt like a necessary step on the ladder. Until one day when I was walking into one of the client edit suites where they will run over the commercials that the clients were commissioning. And I saw in the corner a card, a price rate card, and it had all of the facilities and the cost of everything. And I looked down and I saw my job role, junior motion graphics artist. And it said £297 per hour. And I thought, hang on a minute. That's more than I earn in a day. That's ridiculous. How is that even possible? And it was at that point that I realized that the company doesn't really have my best interest at heart. The company only really cared about what's good for business. And when you're paying your staff barely enough to even afford a roof over their head, because I was having to claim government benefits alongside my salary, it really hit home. So that is literally the moment when I realized, oh, so this is why people go freelance all the time. In the short time I'd been working full time, so many staff left to go freelance. And that's when it dawned on me. Because it's not about, when you go freelance, it's not about freedom, although that is an incredible benefit of going freelance. It's about having control. It's about having control of your future. It's about determining your own value and not having a company dictate it to you, because clearly they don't have your best interests at heart, but only the company's. Now, going freelance isn't easy, and I'm not going to pretend that it's as easy as putting in an application and going through the interview process. You do have to put a lot of time in and effort into building up a network. And for the first 1 to 2 years, it is going to be a struggle. But when it does work, and when you get it working, oh my God, it's the best lifestyle. And I would highly recommend it over full-time. But that is my opinion. Let's go into the pros and cons of both being a full-time editor and freelancer. And let's look at some of the facts and figures to see what is better. So, without further ado, let's go into the pros of being a full-time video editor. Of course, the main reason that most people want to go full-time is the regular salary, the regular paycheck. You know every month exactly what's coming in. And for a lot of people, that is exactly the reason why you would want to go full-time. It enables you to plan your life, to not have to concern yourself about income. And that itself can be a huge weight off your shoulders. However, there are some cons, which we'll get into in a second. Another pro, the office culture. Of course, birthday cake surrounded by your colleagues is quite nice, but not every office culture is great. Another pro is no need to pay for your kit. If you're going into the office, then they've got all of the necessary kit, so you don't have to fork out for that, and your kit at home doesn't have to be the fastest. Of course, you get employment benefits, so you will get health insurance, things like this, but they can often be a way to bolster meager salaries. So pay you a little bit less than you're worth, but they'll tell you, but you get all these amazing benefits. So that is something to be cautious of. You do get mentoring and training when you're working full-time for a company. You'll often have someone above you showing you the ropes and making sure you do everything in the same way. The processes are the same professional way that all of the company adheres to. You've got an instant network as soon as you sign up. So all of the producers that you're working with, they are all now your immediate network. And that's the quickest way in. And of course you get paid time off. So if you want to take a holiday, you know that your pay the next month is going to be exactly the same, which is a really nice benefit. So let's move on to the cons. What are some of the cons of being a full-time video editor? Well, you do get paid less. You might get a regular income, but you do get paid less than freelance. Now we're going to go into a little calculation in a minute that I've done a bit of research into the exact amount based on my empirical evidence, the exact amount difference between freelance salary and full-time salary. So another con for full-time is the salary increase is not guaranteed. So you don't know how much it's going to go up by each year, and if it's going to go above inflation. There's a cost of living crisis at the moment, and I think inflation is on everybody's mind. There's no guarantee that your salary increase is going to go above that. You pay more taxes as a full-time employee. There are ways to pay less or lower taxes if you are working as a freelancer. And the entire applying and interview process of getting a job can be very tedious. Sometimes it can take months, and that's all out of your free time. So you're not getting that time back. Targets have to be met if you are full-time, and that can sometimes mean that your employer will prioritize quantity over the quality of your work, which can sometimes make you feel a bit mechanical in the work that you're doing. And that can also mean monotony. So if you work for one company, generally they tend to specialize in one particular type of work. So you will find that you will be working on that type of work constantly. So that can not only feel monotonous to you as an artist, but also it will limit your portfolio when it comes to showing someone your work. And all you have is one type of work in your portfolio. If you wanted to try something else, then you might find yourself pigeonholed. You have to work when you're told as a full-timer. You can't turn down work if your employer needs you to work. Of course, you do have holiday, but you will have certain requirements as an employee to keep your employer happy, and that'll be written into your contract. Of course, you've got to commute if you do have to work for an employer in their office. Not always the case these days. Remote is prevalent, and there's a lot of hybrid workflows going on. So less so, but it is still a thing. And office culture, of course, can be a con as well as a pro, because sometimes office culture can be a bit toxic, gossiping and such. You also have to deal with bosses. You don't get to choose your boss. So if they're being an ass, then you kind of have to put up with it until you can find a new job. And you get less freedom. Your work-life balance can sometimes be a bit difficult as a full-timer. So those are the list of cons that I've put together. And I want to touch again on Paycheck, because it is the number one reason why people want to take a full-time position. And I get it. We are human. We crave security. That's one of our biological needs. So having that given to you is a huge thing, but you are locked into that salary. And inflation this year, I think it's at 10.1% as of this recording. And it's set to rise again before the end of this year. And if your salary increase is not above that, then you're essentially losing money. And I'd like to explain to you my experience of salaries. So when I first started out, I was on £70,000. And I had a quick look online to see what are the starting salaries now for video editors. So a junior video editor in London will get a salary of £25,000. And a senior, I found this all on Indeed. And in fact, you can find, you can see all of my mathematics, all of my working out online on the blog, on the Unsplice blog. That article should be going live very soon. And the senior salary is about £50,000. With a 10%, let's say that your employer, when you started with the employer at £25,000 or dollars, let's call it the equivalent. If you got your maximum, the ideal pay rise, which is 10% per year, and let's be honest, it normally hovers around 5 to 10%, not normally above. But let's say that you did manage to get the 10% rise every single year when you started at £25,000. When you take into account inflation, which in the US average is about 6% and the UK average is about 4-5%, it would take you 12 years to reach a salary of £50,000. Now, when I started as a freelancer, I went from a salary of around 25,000. That was about my starting salary as a freelancer, to £50,000 in about just under 4 years. So that means a freelance income increases around about 3 to 4 times faster than a full-time income. That's something to take in. That's a lot. That's a big difference. So I thought, is this something that's just specific to the UK? And I checked New York salaries, and they are very similar. You're looking at a starting salary of around about $25,000 and a salary for a senior at around about $60,000. So the numbers are very similar. So that is something to consider if you are thinking about joining the editing workforce as a full-timer. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons of being a freelance video editor. We'll start with the pros. First of all, and possibly my favorite benefit, is that you get to create your own schedule. So you can have time off whenever you want it. Last year, I think I had about 5 months off. This year, I think I'm probably on track for about the same. It's incredibly freeing just being able to work on your own projects and help support your friends on their personal projects and things like this. It's just incredibly rewarding. You get to decide when you raise your pay. So we talked about a cost of living crisis at the moment, and salaries, a lot of them aren't getting increased above inflation. Well, if you are in charge of how much you charge, you set the rate, then you can decide when you want to raise your pay and by how much. You can demand a higher salary in general, and it's a lot more tax efficient. We spoke about that earlier. You are in charge of your career progression as a freelancer. And I think that's really important, because you have the power. If you decide, actually, I'd much rather go work in commercials, or I'd much rather work in documentaries, you have the power to do that, just like that. If you wanted to take your experience up a notch, you could start networking with the people who will be able to enable that for you. So you are fully in charge of your career progression. You also get to work wherever you like most of the time. Sometimes you'll have clients who need you to work from a specific location, but you don't have to say yes to those jobs. If you want, you can only work remotely. And that is amazing, especially in 2022. You are able to do an entire editing workflow remotely, and it's incredibly powerful. So you get to decide what work you do. And the variety of the work as well. So if you decide, actually, I've had enough of social media content, I want to try and do some charity projects, then you can do that. And just having the freedom to be able to pick and choose what you do at what point, depending on how you're feeling, is the perfect way to create a really nice work balance. Because I find if I'm working on commercials constantly for too long, they can be exhausting because the turnarounds are very tight. Clients can be very demanding, and I prefer that way of working. But after doing it for an extended period, sometimes you need a nice scripted or a documentary or something long form that you can do over the course of 3 months or something, and it helps reinvigorate you and you find your energy again. Your PC and your other expenses are all tax deductible, so it technically makes all of your equipment cheaper. That's certainly something to think about. Of course, where you are, it will vary depending on where you live and your tax jurisdiction. So I can't say specifically for everyone, but that is generally how it works. And of course, you hold the power over clients. You were able to say no to the jobs that you don't want to do. So if something comes in that with a client that doesn't fall in your align with your beliefs or anything like this, then you can just say no. So those are the list of the most prevalent pros of working as a freelancer. It's not all roses, of course. There are some cons. So I'm just going to run through those with you. Irregular income is probably the one that I think most people stress over. Not having a regular monthly pay can be stressful for some. But there is a way to prevent that being an issue. I'm going to go on to that a little bit later, but you just need to save up a bit of money and then you're sorted. You may not get invited to office parties or awards ceremonies or things like this if you're a freelancer. It depending on what sort of work that you do. Music video editors can get invited to these sorts of things, but you'll probably find that that's more regular in full-time positions. As a freelancer, you are often working on your own, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing. I think as video editors, we are generally introverted people. I've met many video editors in my time, and we all kind of share this introverted personality, but then we come out of our shells every now and again, you know? So I think a lot of editors actually prefer to work on their own. So that could be a pro or it could be a con. That's down to you to decide. One of the major cons is, of course, networking is essential. There's no really two ways about it. The first 1 to 2 years are going to be the hardest as a freelancer. You will need to network and find work, because otherwise you won't make a living. You will need to source your work. That is something that I think bothers a lot of people and stops them from pulling the trigger on a freelance career, is because they don't know how to find the work, and they're worried that the work that they get might not be particularly interesting. You've got to do your own taxes. Now, of course, that is essential. Everybody's got to pay taxes. But if you get an accountant, then that's pretty much what they're for. They're there to take all of the weight off of your shoulders, so that all you have to do is some bare minimum invoicing, receipts, expenses, that sort of thing. It's once you've got an accountant on board, it's not a complete headache, and it sounds a lot scarier than it actually is. You don't get any paid time off. Of course, this is true. If you're not working, you're not earning. But you are charging so much more per day that actually you get to take more holidays. As I said earlier, last year I had about 5 months off, and that was from choice. And I still earn the same amount of money as I would have if I was full-time. But I had all that much more freedom. So I think this no paid time off thing, it's not really a con for me. You're responsible for insurance. You do have to pay for professional insurance, but it's done. It's one and done, really. Once it's up, it's done. It doesn't really take much time, and it's not really anything to worry about. Chasing payments. Now, of course, if your client isn't paying, then you can set up your accounting software. Mine does anyway. I use Xero, and it automatically emails clients that don't pay on time, and it will keep emailing them until they do pay. So it's not really something that I worry about. You become good at sniffing out the bad clients, and as long as you are safe and you get a contract and everything in place, then it's not really something to worry about. Certainly I don't concern myself too much with it. It can be more difficult to get a mortgage. That is something worth considering if you want to get on the housing ladder very soon. If you've got a long timeline, then it's really not an issue. Buying a house these days is so expensive. I think it's a pipe dream for anyone under the age of 40, basically. So using your higher income, you could save a lot more money and put down a bigger deposit on a house. So you don't really have to worry about the higher monthly payments from a mortgage anyway. I'm getting beyond the scope of this podcast, but I could talk a bit more about that, but I'll leave that there. And the final con is when you work as a freelance editor, it can be difficult to find mentorship or guidance, someone to help guide you to make sure that you are doing everything in the most efficient way possible and getting the best results from your editing. And also helping to give you feedback so that you can improve quicker. Now, with the launch of Unsplice Pro, that essentially puts all of that in the past. That's not a worry anymore, because every week you get a Q&A session with me where you can ask me about some questions about your career. And every month you're getting creative training to help you improve one particular part of your creative editing process. So with the extra money that you earn from freelancing, you only need to pay a small monthly fee in order to get even better benefits than if you were working full time, and you still get to keep the massive paycheck. So I think you can kind of see which I'm erring towards, freelance or full time. So I did some calculations with regards to how much more do freelancers get paid, and it's really interesting based on the searches that I did earlier, as well as the fact that during COVID in 2020, all of the freelance work dried up for a very short period, and I was headhunted by Amazon Studios to work in there as a senior video editor. Their offer was £55,000, and as tempting as it was, because there was no freelance work coming in, I knew that it was a short period and it was short-lived, and I turned it down. And I'm really glad I did, because sure enough, the freelance work picked up very, very quickly after, and I ended up having one of the best freelance years of my career. So that £55,000 pounds salary offer is a good litmus test for how much I was valued by a company. My freelance salary, when I take into account my freelance rate, I could calculate exactly how much more a full-timer, how much more a freelancer gets compared to a full-timer. So if you look at a junior freelancer, they earn 50% more per day based on the 25,000 salary that we spoke about earlier and how much the average day rate is for a junior. So as a senior, based on the Amazon role job offer that I was given, a senior video editor can earn double. So my job offer was for 55k, and my rate at the time was about £450. So according to my calculations, that's roughly about double. So my freelance rate was double. So you can see exactly how much more a freelancer gets paid compared to a full-timer. So how hard is it to be a freelance video editor? Because it sounds great, but also you're probably thinking about all the cons that I listed and the difficulties that it can be with life as a freelancer. Well, of course you have irregular income as the number one issue. However, the way that I recommend to combat this is by saving up 6 to 12 months worth of living expenses before you start your freelance career. Now, that will not only save you if there is a drought in work, but you'll also have this sense of freedom, a sense of power really, because when jobs come to you, if someone wants you to work on something for $5 or $10, if you're in a place of desperation, you're probably going to take that. And if something else comes along while that job is on and you have to turn it down, that's a better rate, then you're going to be kicking yourself. So if you have this financial buffer, that puts you in a position of power to be able to choose the jobs that you take on. And that enables you to choose the better jobs, which will in turn increase the trajectory of your career. And another thing that I recommend to do before you make the jump into freelance is to network and prep your portfolio before you take the leap. In the membership, in Unsplice Pro, I'm going to find the date for you now, on the 23rd of August, I'll be helping the members to put together a portfolio and a show reel that best shows off your skills and will be the best calling card to give to clients, because there are certain things that clients are looking for in a freelancer. So you want to be able to give them exactly what they're looking for. And if you can prep that before you make the leap to freelance, it puts you in a very good position. So, is it better to be freelance or full-time? You've heard the pros and cons of each. I think you've probably heard my leaning, because I think all the evidence points towards freelance. You get double the salary, which gives you so much more freedom, of course. And of course, you've got the actual freedom itself, time freedom, freedom to work wherever you want. Just because of all of this freedom, it gives you a much better job satisfaction as well when you work as a freelancer. You have more free time. And if you think about employee wages, they have been stagnating for years, and the cost of living is going higher and wages are not keeping up with those. If you work as a freelancer, you get to dictate how much your income goes. And there is no way, if I was working full time over the last 15 years of editing, that I would have been able to keep up with the cost of living the way it has. But as a freelancer, I have been able to optimize my income to be able to live the lifestyle that I've become accustomed to. And I believe, and I'm not the only one that believes this, that freelancing will become the norm. I think you've heard of the Great Resignation. Of course, a lot of people are leaving jobs that they are unhappy in and going to pursue things that they feel they find joy in. And some of you listening might actually have resigned from a job that you felt no joy from in order to pursue editing. And I'm with you, because you've only got one life and you might as well do something that brings you joy every day. And now I don't want to get all preachy, but you can spend your days doing something you love, and it doesn't have to be a hobby. So I think the freelance lifestyle works perfectly for independent thinkers. And Unsplice understands that freelancing comes with its own tricks, with its own quirks, and in order to make it work, there are certain guidelines that you need to work within. And so that's why Unsplice Pro is the perfect companion for a freelance career. I've already been through the entire process from scratch of building a freelance career to work as a documentary and commercial editor in London. So with a monthly membership and the weekly career guidance and the monthly creative training, it's designed specifically to prepare you for a powerful freelance career. And I want what's best for you, really. I'm unlike the companies that will offer you full-time jobs, who really are only looking out for themselves and the bottom line. I want what's best for your career. And so Unsplice is designed to give you that, because the better that you do with your career, the more people you tell, and the better the industry gets as a whole. So if you have been sold on freelance as a career and you are looking for guidance, career guidance, as well as creative editing guidance, then why not head to unsplice.com/pro and take a look at Unsplice Pro, because it's the first of its kind and it's going to change the industry. And if you are one of the founding members, then you will be able to lock in that low rate. So I'll just run over the details very quickly again. You've got two rates at the moment as we're in the beta phase. We've got the first rate, which is weekly career guidance. So every week there's going to be a live Q&A session where I'm going to help improve your career in one specific area. So coming up in August, we've got how to move from assistant editor to editor, your career trajectory, and essentially what you should be learning at each point in your career in order to get to the next point. How to find work as a freelancer, more importantly. That's coming up in August. How to best show off what you can do with your portfolio and show reel, as well as prices and rates. How much should you be charging? How do you set yourself up for success? And how do you deal with money? That's only in the first month in August. And that's only £25. So head to unsplice.com/pro if you would like to take a look at that. And then the second tier, which gives you all of that plus 2 hours of creative editing training live with a Q&A so that you can ask me questions as well afterwards. And in the first month, I'm going to help you create a TV commercial that you can put on your portfolio in your reel, so that when you go to a client, you've already got a TV commercial on your reel. That's coming up in August. And that tier of membership is only £50. And when you consider that most creative courses on there are hundreds of pounds, this is incredible value. And that's why the price of the membership will double after this beta stage. Once we go past the beta stage as well, we will be instigating a community forum where all of you guys get to meet and greet each other. We're going to be throwing socials, going to be throwing quizzes. We're going to be having work exchanges. So if you've got some overflow work that you can't do because you're unavailable, you can meet other editors and exchange details and hand off the work to them. We've got so much lined up for Unsplice Pro. It's going to be incredible. At some point, we're going to have a library of footage for you to work with, projects that you can practice editing with. And the first one is coming in August. We've got the TV commercial. So members will be able to download the footage for the TV commercial. You'll be guided through how to edit it, and you'll be able to put it on your portfolio. So head to unsplice.com/pro to check that out. Well, I don't think it was too bad this live. There were a few bits where there was a hiccup. It's been a bit longer than I expected, but there's been a lot of information to take in. So hopefully that's all worked well for you. If you are thinking about joining Unsplice Pro, but you're not quite sure, then why not just sign up for the mailing list? Every week you'll get a editing tip straight into your inbox, and you can just head to unsplice.com to sign up for the mailing list. Thank you so much for listening. I can't wait to speak to you again soon. And I can't wait for the launch of this membership. It's going to be amazing. I've been busy behind the scenes, getting everything ready, and I can't wait to share it all with you. So thank you for listening again, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.